Hi, I'm Stephen Masley, and I wanted to share some, I think, really cool information. There was an article that came out in JAMA that got me thinking about vitamin D, and I thought, okay, this is a great opportunity to make sure you're up to date on what you need to know. How much vitamin D should you be getting each day? So, what is it? I mean, vitamin D, we call it a vitamin. That you can get from a supplement, you can get a tiny bit from food, you can get from the sun. But in reality, once it gets into your bloodstream and you convert it to the active form, it acts like a hormone in that every cell in your body has a vitamin D receptor, and the vitamin D activates that vitamin D receptor and changes how your vitamins function, how your whole life functions, how your chemistry function. That's what hormones do. They regulate and modify our tissue function, and that's what vitamin D does. That's what makes it so important. All right, now, where do you usually get it? For 100,000 years, we got it from the sun. People were in sunshine, and for hours a day, we ran around in a loincloth for the last 100,000 years, hunting, gathering. We got plenty. And if you lived north of like Atlanta, Dallas, Santa Barbara, you get enough in the summer you could store it all year, because 6 months of the year, if you live across that line in the US, certainly if you're up in Canada or the UK, if you're that far north, then you don't make that much vitamin D. You only get it produced 6 months of the year. And from food, I mean, kind of basically, it's not realistic. Yes, people say, well, I get some from milk, right? Well, true, you get 100 international units from a cup of milk, and you need about 2,000 a day. So 20 cups of milk and you're there, but who's going to drink that? And what about when we think of, another source? Egg yolks. And people say, oh yeah, they're really high in egg yolks. Yeah, but 25 international units in an egg yolk. You need 40 egg yolks every day. Are you kidding? No, that's not going to happen. So we're not getting it from food. We could get it in the sun, but most of us would need at least an hour of sunlight in bathing suit-like attire for that to work, and you don't make any when you wear sunscreen. So usually you're going to get sun damage if you're getting an hour of sun every day. A little bit would be fine, but to really get your vitamin D's up, especially if you're not 18 years old, once we're 30, 40, 50, we need more sun to actually make it with our skin. So probably not going to get from food, not going to get it from the sun. So really your best source is going to be some sort of supplement. And then that comes down to this big debate we've been having for nearly 20 years. How much do people need? Now, levels, what we'd like to see is you get an adequate level. I recommend that your level should be, the bare minimum is 30. And really, I recommend that my patients have a level between 40 to 60, and I'll come back to that. Now, we do know that when people added just 1,000 international units a day, their cancer risk dropped by 40%. I mean, that's huge. A 40% risk of a cancer drop if you just add 1,000, a tiny dose of vitamin D each day. So, I mean, that would be like the very bare minimum. If your levels are low, what is your risk? You risk bone loss, like fractures, more heart attacks and stroke. Your blood pressure goes up. You can get muscle aches and bone pain that can be really pretty severe. So low vitamin D is, and as well as it's also associated with memory loss and Alzheimer's disease. So I don't want you to have low vitamin D levels. I want your levels to be good and robust. So as I mentioned in the beginning, there's a new study that just came out in the Journal of the American Medical Association. Researchers in the US at 32 rural clinics randomized over 2,000 postmenopausal women to either 2,000 of vitamin D a day plus calcium, or kind of a placebo. Even the placebo group got 800 international units of vitamin D a day. So basically, vitamin D at 2,000 plus calcium, 500 3 times a day, versus 800 of vitamin D a day. And they followed them for 4 years to look at cancer risk. Well, what did they find? What they found was after 4 years, there was about a 25% reduction in cancer in the vitamin D and calcium treated group compared to the only 800 unit group. But they said that was just shy of significant. What does that mean? Well, researchers, when we do studies, we do complicated statistical analyses, and we look at what's the chance that this occurrence in this study occurred because of chance. And you would like to see there's less than a 5% chance of occurrence by chance. That's 0.05. And in this study, it was 0.06, so not quite there. So they looked at, well, what could we do to improve the study? Now, typically, if you're trying to prevent cancer, if I start you on vitamin D today, it's not going to decrease your cancer risk next week, right? I mean, that's not realistic. And if you get diagnosed next week or even in the next year, you probably had the cancer before. So in studies that look at cancer, what we normally do is we say, okay, we're not going to count year 1, but if it's a 4-year study, we're going to look at years 2, 3, and 4. And when they looked at years 2, 3, and 4, they found that if you got 2,000 international units of vitamin D a day, it decreased your cancer risk by about 30%. So, wow, and that was actually really significant. That was true, that was there, that was a real finding that occurred. So that was great. And even more important, it wasn't based on the dose you took, on your blood level. If you got your blood level up to a higher level, then, if you went from a blood level of 30 to 55, your cancer risk dropped by 35 to 37%. Highly significant. So your level is the most important part. So what do I recommend? I recommend you start taking vitamin D, 2,000 international units every day if you don't. That you check your level after about 3 or 4 months to see once it's stabilized, and I'd like to see your level between 40 to 60, not over 70. Not over 70, especially unless another doctor gives you other reasons to do so, because levels over 100 are associated with problems like atrial fibrillation. So 2,000 a day, get your levels up, check it at some point. And if you're a little low, take more, like 3,000 a day. Now, if you need more than 3,000 a day to get your level up to 40 to 60, here's a caveat. In our clinic, the most common reason for that is gluten sensitivity. People have a gluten problem, it's irritating their gut, and they don't absorb vitamin D very well. If you want some more details on this, I sent out a blog today. You can go to my blog and check it out and see right there for more detailed information. And if you don't already sign up and get my blog, you can just go to my website, drmasley.com, drmasley.com. Sign up for the blog, and I'll give you some free gifts if you'll do that. So in my clinic, how do I help my patients get vitamin D? Use like my heart pack. We have 1,000 in the multi and 1,000 that comes with the fish oil they get. And it also comes with vitamin K, which I think is really good, and all those other essential nutrients that you need. Or they can simply take a 2,000 pill vitamin D, and I like to give it with vitamin K so you don't end up vitamin K deficient. So there's my answer for the day. How much vitamin D do you need? Aim for 2,000, get your level up, and adjust your dosage to get it just right. Don't overdo it. More isn't better. I wish you a wonderful day, and thanks for joining me live here. Bye. Okay. So I couldn't see any comments. Hey, I'm peeking at some of these questions. These are great. Should you, when you test your level, what level do you check? You're looking at 25 hydroxy vitamin D. You don't have to look at the 125 hydroxy vitamin D. That's something I would only rarely check in people who need a high dose, or they had a parathyroid tumor problem or something like that. So the 25 hydroxy vitamin D is it. That's a pretty simple one. And Cecilia, thank you for sharing this. I really appreciate when people post this and share it with others. That's really helpful for me, and I'm grateful for that. So, and hi Kathy, I'm glad you tuned in today. All right, thank you very much for joining me and for sending those questions, and don't forget to check out the blog.